Hey everyone, I'm Jay from JXB Performance, and we are in the middle of some product development for the 2020 and up Ford Explorer, mostly targeted towards the ST guys, but our products will fit all of the Explorer variants. We are making a two-piece center support bearing, which is our most common product. We make that for a wide range of vehicles. And then we are also making a differential bushing lockout/insert kit. This is designed to take up a lot of space in the bushings, basically stiffen them up. We know that the rear differentials, and specifically the 1-bolt subframes and sometimes even the 2-bolt subframes, are subject to quite a lot of play, and there are a number of differential braces out there on the market. So we wanted to see how our insert kit and our center support bearing would pair with these differential braces. So we have one of each of the three main ones that we know that exist. We have here the FenFab. It is called the Stiffy brace. This is our lowest cost option. Get my receipts out here. This was $168 free shipping. And then we have our AWR racing option, which is our middle of the road one. That was $279. So Steeda, this is the kind of highest cost option. This one is $499.95. It does come with a neoprene can cooler for free. So let's start with the FenFab Stiffy brace. This one is definitely very bare bones. This is also the only one that appears you have to drill into your subframe to install. So basically this part is going to attach with these spacer washers into your differential, basically replacing a couple of the bolt holes there. And then you're going to take this piece of what appears to be polyurethane and stick it on top of here, and this goes up against your subframe. You do have to drill the holes through this, basically using this as a template, and then into your subframe to make it fit right. That's basically all there is to this kit. Then the AWR racing kit. This one is pretty clever. So this is kind of a two-part system with a bushing in the middle. And this is a pretty clever thing. So this actually slides up through a hole in the subframe and then goes across, and it's kind of a receiver bracket for these two bolts. It's pretty nice. These stay together, which is really cool. And you can always grab onto this. So very easy to align it and hard to lose this up in your subframe. So pretty clever there. This seems to get the job done, and no drilling in your subframe. Then moving on to the Steeda brace. This thing is huge. And I can see why this costs double what all the other ones do, if not more. So you've got two bushings instead of one. If you look at the back side of this, there's all sorts of crazy stuff going on here to make this just right. And then this attaches to, I think it's advertised as a 4-bolt attachment, but really it's like 6 bolts that attach to your diff, because you remove these 4 and replace them, but then you also loosen up the factory bolts on these 2 and slide these up and then retighten them. So you're really kind of grabbing onto 6 bolts on the diff. And then you've got a bunch of hardware here. Obviously there's a lot more hardware for this one, but you've got these are the bolts that go attached one bracket to the other, and then you've got these 4 that actually replace 4 of your OEM diff bolts, and then you've got 3 of these like nut inserts. So this actually attaches to 3 places on your subframe, and each one you kind of stick it up through a hole and then over, and then you take this stud and you screw it up into there, and then you take this nut and screw it into the stud to hold these brackets on. And then this does also come with some lube, which is good for poly bushings. Last thing I did want to do too is look at the durometer of all of them. This is really important when you're considering how much NVH might transfer. I did see that there are 2 versions of the Steeda brace, one with these red ones, which are supposed to be 55A durometer, and then they have like a black race bushing, which is 95A, which is like stupid stiff. That would be for track cars only. They say that right on there. So I'm gonna look at the FenFab one here. We're looking at 90A. So this is pretty stiff. And keep in mind also that this is the geometry of this one is different than the other. So this is a big flat plate, and you're gonna be pushing up on this. So I'm guessing this one's gonna end up really stiff. All right, then the AWR racing one, we've got these black bushings in it. I don't think there's options on these ones. So 85A here. So also, again, pretty stiff. And now we have the street version of the Steeda brace. And that's also up there. Yeah, that's 80. So pretty sure that's stiffer than advertised. I'd be curious to see what the black ones actually are. And then just to prove that this is actually calibrated. This is our Long Acre Racing calibrated Durometer test block. So 60 should be reading 69 at room temperature of 70. It is 70 in here. And yeah, we're reading right there. So, but yeah, so it seems like all of them are pretty stiff in the grand scheme of things. It's really going to come down to geometry. This one's a flat plate, so you've kind of got a lot of material there, and you're not point loading the material anywhere, so it should be pretty stiff because of that. This single bushing is, I'm guessing this is going to be the softest one, just because you do point load the bushing with the sleeve, and then same here, but there's 2 bushings. So we've got some cameras mounted underneath the car, and we will be going out, doing some launches, doing some pretty big brake holding for before launches, and seeing how much these things move around, and then see if our bushing inserts can reduce that movement even further. And hopefully we'll come up with some conclusions after installing these about kind of which ones we recommend. We're under the 2020 Ford Explorer ST now, taking a look at the differential bushings. This particular one has a 2 bushing subframe. When they first came out, they used 2 bushings. At some point they switched to a single bushing, and they had a lot of issues with the bolts themselves bending and breaking. There is a recall on the single bushing subframes. They basically, it seems like they just replaced the bushing with another one, which looks pretty similar. We got our hands on one. And then they do something in the software to kind of eliminate some of the hill hold assist, which tend to put really high loads, like starting off from a stoplight or whatever. So these are extremely flexible. We measured the durometer of these. They're like 30 or 40, depending on where you measure, which is really, really soft for a bushing. We've also seen that this particular bushing, the right-hand bushing on the 2 subframes, tends to get twisted up. This one looks pretty good. Might have to do with just install at the factory. Regardless, that's not encouraging to see. This one's very soft, and then you've got this one's mounted kind of the opposite direction, clock 90 degrees, which is a little stiffer, but still the same very soft material. And you'll see in our videos, there's a lot of movement of these bushings. So what we have here is these are just 3D printed prototypes. Obviously the final versions will be in aluminum. We're just going to try to get some testing done today. So these basically just go in and plug all the voids. So you're literally just going to take the bolts out, put these in, and put the bolts back in. And the benefit of this is it stiffens the bushing quite a lot, and it also prevents the bushing or the differential within the bushing of basically building up speed and then bottoming out, which is what tends to break things. So if you can basically make the system act as one more, you're going to have better throttle response and less peak loads on the hardware itself. So as far as the footage we're going to collect, we are basically going to start with a baseline with no diff brace, no bushing insert kit. And then we're going to add our bushing insert kit, see the difference in movement, and then we're going to go through all of the diff braces, see the movement that the diff braces allow, and then see if we can further improve that by adding our bushing inserts. So we just got done with all of our on-car testing. We were able to test 2 diff braces, the AWR and the Steeda. We weren't able to test the FenFab brace. Reason being, you do have to drill permanent holes in the subframe, and the owner was not really good with that. We don't want to potentially have his subframe rusting out later because we just leave holes in it. So we did a baseline with no brace, no bushing inserts, and then we added our inserts to that. We did a baseline with each of the 2 braces, and then we added our bushing inserts to each of those 2. So we have 6 total test cases. And then I want to show you a little bit about the measurement method here. We wanted to track how far the differential bolts move within the bushing during our launch. So to start with, we need to get some sort of calibration here so we can actually use some units. We've used these on-screen calipers to calibrate to the diameter of the bushing, which is 85 millimeters. We're going to do a separate left and right calibration because there is some parallax that we need to take into consideration. So first, we've set the calipers to 85 millimeters from top to bottom, and then we are going to measure the starting position of the bolt, and then during the launch, we will measure the ending position, basically the lowest that the bolt travels. And then same thing, get a calibration on the right side, and then start position and final position. So we did this with all 6 of our cases. I will not bore you with the details of all the calibrations and starting position measurements. I'm just gonna flip through them here. So we have the AWR brace by itself, left and right measurement, and then we've got the Steeda brace by itself, left and right measurement. And then we put in our JXB bushing inserts. This is with no brace, left and right. Then we've added the AWR brace with the bushing inserts. And then finally the JXB plus Steeda. All right, and then here is the results. When you add a brace or you add bushing inserts to things, your starting positions here tend to go up. So we started at 35 millimeters from the bottom of the bushing. And then once we added the AWR and Steeda, we moved up a few millimeters. Once you add the JXB inserts, you move up substantially. So this is basically returning the bolt to the center of the bushing so that there's really like no sag in the bushing when you're starting. And then down here you can see the same thing. So you've got left bushing, right bushing. So same thing, our starting positions all kind of go up when you add a Steeda or the AWR brace, and they go up substantially when you add the JXB inserts. And then in terms of the actual results here, so we did notice the AWR on the left bushing actually has a negative effect on the travel of that bushing. And that's because the AWR is very asymmetrical. It's just set up on the right side. It's supposed to offset basically the single bolt subframes, which only have this bushing. Different version, it looks like this. So we actually saw more movement on the left bushing, and then we did see a reduction in movement on the right bushing. So once you get to the Steeda, you can see here on the left bushing, there was a little bit of improvement, and the right bushing had a substantial amount of improvement versus baseline. Then when we go over to adding the JXB inserts, which is the right-hand side here, now there's 2 things to look at. We've got improvement compared to the baseline no brace, which is this number here, this area. And then we have improvement versus adding the JXB inserts to whatever the equivalent thing is over here. So in this case, these numbers are the same. And then here we've got improvements versus the baseline, and then improvements versus basically having the brace without the inserts. So you can see here for left and right bushings both, when you add our bushing inserts to one of the braces, you substantially reduce the amount of movement and deflection in the bushings. The goal of these is simply to fill the voids that you see in the OEM bushings. This stiffens up the bushing, which is going to provide quicker throttle response and also reduce peak loads by not allowing basically the air here to act as slack in the bushing. You can see adding the JXB inserts to a stock 2 bushing subframe with no brace, that's a 50% reduction in movement. Adding them to the AWR brace, we reduce the deflection by 45%, and adding them to the Steeda brace, we reduce the deflection by 38%. For the single bushing subframe, we actually had our buddy Travis Ellisor over at Houston Speed Freaks help us out. We couldn't get a single bushing in-house, so we just used his vehicle, did a very similar experiment. He has the AWR brace installed, so we were able to compare basically without the brace and then with the brace, adding the inserts to both of those situations. We found actually that due to the design of the single bushing, there's actually fairly low deflection from the factory. There's just not very big voids in it. So we saw overall that deflection, the starting numbers, like the baseline numbers, were actually quite a bit lower, I think around 50% lower. So the single bushings are moving a lot less, but then when we add our inserts, the percentage that we're reducing that deflection is actually even higher. So we're basically reducing deflection to just about 0. Adding the JXB inserts to the stock single bushing subframe with no brace, which you'd be crazy to be running it like that, you're going to reduce the deflection by 79%. And then adding it to the AWR brace, you reduce it to 83%. And just to give an idea of how much we're actually getting to, our deflection is literally like 0.5 millimeter. So we're basically reducing it to 0 with these, which is going to be awesome for your throttle response. So this that I have here in my hand is just a 3D printed prototype. The final version is going to be billet aluminum. We actually were able to use these for testing. You might have heard a little crunch in one of the first videos. That was actually the layers separating here. But luckily, they don't really need to be attached to do what we need to do. They just need to keep filling up the holes. So we were able to continue our testing. These things are not the end-all be-all for saving your differential bolts. These are not intended to replace a differential brace. They absolutely will reduce peak loads on your differential bolts, but we recommend using these in conjunction with the differential brace. So we came into this hoping to come out with a solid conclusion about which of the differential braces is the best. But based on our testing, we really found there's a pretty wide range of performance with them and also a wide price range. The Steeda hands down performed the best, right? It attaches to the differential in 6 places. It has 2 bushings. It stopped deflection the most out of all of the ones that we tested. And then followed by the AWR. We didn't get to test the FenFab, of course. So it really just comes down to what your budget is. Like the Steeda, if you can afford it, just go with the Steeda. I mean, it's by far the best one in terms of quality. The install takes a little bit longer because it just has so many bolts you have to deal with. But this thing is rock solid. Then after that, the AWR is a great alternative. You don't have to drill any holes. It's really in the middle of the road in terms of budget, almost half the price of the Steeda brace. You know, the one downside I'll say to that is it only supports one side of the differential, which if you have a 1-bolt subframe is kind of what you're looking for anyways. But in terms of actually controlling the movement, it didn't do a whole lot, and it actually kind of increased the movement on the left side of the differential. And then the FenFab, from everything we could see, it appears like it would perform the same as the AWR brace. The material is fairly thick, and I will say that the way the bushing is set up, there's actually no bushing in the direction of the load. It's solid in the direction of load, so it might actually perform better, but I would imagine that this could also add a lot more NVH to the ride. These subframe bushings are pretty soft too, so maybe it's a non-issue. But I'd say if you're just on a budget, go with that one as long as you don't mind drilling some holes in your subframe. Otherwise, I think a great middle-of-the-road one is going to be this AWR, and then if you've got the budget for it, just go with the Steeda. Regardless of which one you choose, definitely consider adding our inserts to them. They improve the performance of each of the available diff braces on the market right now. And then consider adding our Driveshaft Carrier upgrade. Both of these things are available right now on our website. They're both in pre-order, which you can save some money. And then let us know what you think of all this. This is by far the most in-depth we've gone at comparing things, especially other people's products. We usually don't get into that. We try to swim in our own lane because we don't want to ruffle any feathers here. But we thought this was a really good opportunity to see how some of these braces work out there, and then see how we can further improve them. We are big fans of the scientific method, and setting up this design of experiment was really fun for us. So if you want to see more stuff like this, just drop a comment, let us know, or just let us know what you liked and didn't like. So if we do decide to put this kind of effort into some little void-filling plugs again, then that we know which way to go. So I'm Jay from JXB, and thanks for watching.